Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright guys, chapter 72. Full spoilers have finally been released, and we finally get to hear about a lot of dialogue that we didn't necessarily get to see when the actual spoiled images came out. This chapter right here is absolutely insane. Usually what I do is I talk about the most important thing and then I go down from that, but in this particular chapter a lot of important things really went down, so I'm probably going to be talking about the events that did actually happen in chronological order. If you guys do want to follow along or actually skip ahead, the timestamps are going to be down below. But regardless, the first thing that happens in this chapter is Amado's call to Shikamaru. Now in this particular call, Amado kind of detailed exactly what went down to Shikamaru. He's essentially telling Shikamaru that, hey, Eida and Code, they broke it off. Eida is now heading back to the Hidden Leaf Village. Now this particular time he relays something very important. It's going to take us 3 to 4 days to actually get back to the Hidden Leaf Village. This right here is going to be very important, Malin, because Code is able to actually go to the Hidden Leaf Village in the snap of a second. He has teleportation with his claw marks. The reason why I didn't necessarily think that this right here is going to be a big deal is because Code by himself wouldn't necessarily be able to beat Boruto, Kawaki, Naruto, and Sasuke. However, after this chapter, you guys are going to pretty much understand why I'm a little bit more on edge because of this now. Now, I was kind of asking myself, why in the world do they need 3 to 4 days to actually get back to the Hidden Leaf Village? But then I thought, hey, maybe Amado himself can't necessarily travel at those speeds that Damon and Eida can also travel at, so they need to take like a light rail or a bus or a train, something like that. Amado also tells Shikamaru about Damon. Now, in this particular situation, Shikamaru is almost livid. The reason why Shikamaru is almost livid is not necessarily because he didn't necessarily know that Eida had a teammate. In the last chapter, in fact, he actually did insinuate that Eida had someone also with her. The problem, however, is the fact that Amado and Shikamaru, they're taking a huge risk on even taking an Eida. Now you're introducing a brand new character, and Shikamaru was like kind of visibly mad. Shikamaru was actually yelling at Amado because of this, but Amado kind of reminded my guy like, yo, this isn't really in our control anymore. This is all up to Eida, and you can't necessarily separate Damon and Eida. Amado then compounds the bad news by actually telling Shikamaru that, hey, Code actually got his limiters removed, which is, I thought it would have possibly been a no-brainer, but it was just like a compounding thing. Not only do you have to take in Damon as well, but now Code has also removed his limiters. But the call essentially ends right there. Shikamaru tries to call a meeting immediately, emergency meeting, shout out to Tate, and then essentially says we need a meeting between Naruto and Team 7. Now, this kind of got me confused, man, because Sasuke is nowhere to be seen in this whole entire chapter, and Sasuke wasn't necessarily called in for this particular meeting, even though Sasuke is definitely one of the higher ranking members of the Hidden Leaf Village and should definitely be privy to a lot of this information. He's just not necessarily in this chapter, and I don't necessarily know why. But moving forward, Amado, after he gets off the phone call, he is now being threatened by Eida again. In this particular situation, Eida essentially says if Kawaki and her don't really get along, she's going to kill Amado. Now this is going to be different, mainly because prior to this, the objective was just to get Eida closer to Kawaki, period, point blank, and now she's putting a different level of stipulation onto it. They have to get along now. Next thing you know is going to be they have to get married. If they don't get married, she's going to kill Amado. The scene shifts to Boruto getting ready for the meeting. Hinata enters the room and damn near starts to just break down. She actually starts to cry and actually starts to tell Boruto like, hey, I hope you come back. And since she starts to express her feelings as a parent of a ninja, which is very normal in this particular situation. I kind of didn't necessarily know why she was kind of feeling that way, mainly because this is the life of a ninja. Not only was she a ninja, her parents were ninjas, her parents' parents were ninjas, but it's a little bit different when you're actually the parent of a ninja. And I kind of definitely empathize with Hinata, not only because of that, but also because Boruto has been getting into a lot of dangerous stuff. Let's keep it 1,000. He even talked about how he died before and how he came back alive. So this right here is going to be a very emotional scene, and when the anime comes out, they're going to hit on this extremely hard. But in that particular scene, Boruto kind of tries to put Hinata at ease, says, hey, I'll be back regardless, I'll always be back. Then right after that scene, here's where one of the biggest scenes of the chapter starts. Momoshiki appears. It's going to be a very similar scene where Momoshiki always appears. It's going to be when time stops, everything is going slow and everything like that, and Boruto is the only person to actually be able to see Momoshiki, and then they have an open line of communication. Momoshiki came in trolling off of the rip. He essentially came in saying like, what do you mean you'll always be back? Momoshiki then goes to reiterate that eventually he'll lose everything, his destiny is going to be extremely bleak, and of course doom and gloom, everything that Momoshiki said before. But there's more information that was added to this specific thing right here. Momoshiki was essentially telling Boruto that eventually he is going to want to die. Now Boruto, in his mind, he's thinking it doesn't necessarily matter because Momoshiki, you can't reincarnate, it doesn't matter, you're not a threat to me regardless. Momoshiki then goes on to say, before you despair, you will lose the will to live and you would want to run away from this world. Don't you understand? At the end, I'll take your life, I'll take your place and live as Uzumaki Boruto. This right here is absolutely insane. This is a complete deviation from what Momoshiki's plans were before. He's now saying that he's going to live as Uzumaki Boruto. Momoshiki then goes on to say, don't worry about it. You will just stay holed up in the corner of your mind and everything will be fine. Reincarnation and such is no longer a problem. I can monopolize your body. It's the same thing. Now, in this particular situation, in my eyes or in my mind, I'm getting the idea of Jigen. Even though Jigen and Ishiki Otsutsuki's relationship was a bit different, Ishiki Otsutsuki was still alive. He was just living in the mind of Jigen, which then made him able to actually control Jigen. Momoshiki in this particular situation, I'm thinking that he's banking on the fact that Boruto was willingly going to give his body up to Momoshiki because of all the problems in his actual life that he's actually going to want to die. This right here is probably going to be one of the closest ways to actually do so. This is an interesting deviation in Momoshiki's plans. I like it. I'm not gonna lie. I like it. Now, of course, Boruto had his rebuttal. He essentially said, I'd rather die than give my body up to you, Momoshiki. And then Momoshiki says, destiny is already written. Of course, you can't really change destiny. All that yada yada stuff that Momoshiki been talking about since episode 65. But regardless, that right there is where the scene ends with Momoshiki Otsutsuki. Boruto, after that, let's say, mind call from Momoshiki, he is perplexed. I mean, absolutely perplexed. At this particular point, Boruto is outside. Sarada and Mitsuki are walking up, mainly because of course they're going to the meeting at the Hokage's office, because of course the meeting was called by Shikamaru. Boruto doesn't even acknowledge Sarada and Mitsuki, and he just yells out into the air, don't talk nonsense, I'm the only one who could decide my future. And then Boruto just takes off in the direction of the Hokage's office. Now this right here is absolutely amazing, mainly because it doesn't necessarily mean that Boruto's running away. Hey, he's just going to the Hokage's office. Thank God. I thought before this came out Boruto was leaving. I don't know where he was going, but regardless, everything is good. Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki are now heading to the Hokage's office to actually have the meeting. Scene shifts. Here's where things really kick off. Code enters the Ten Tails dimension. He enters the Ten Tail dimension through some claw marks that was actually over Ishiki Otsutsuki's stone tablet. If you guys do recall, back in I believe chapter 35 or 36, we actually did see a bunch of stone tablets that kind of represent Otsutsuki members, and in that actual dimension, there's a Ten Tails. Of course, we all know the famous Ten Tails. Code enters right then and there through Ishiki Otsutsuki's stone tablet. And an interesting fact, this right here was actually listed in the spoilers in chapter 35. Years ago, we seen the claw marks over Ishiki Otsutsuki's stone tablet, which is absolutely insane. But he enters that, essentially pulls up on the Ten Tails. The scientist that was with him bug. He's losing his mind, man, because he never really known about a dimension like this. And this right here might be the first time that he's even seeing a tailed beast, let alone the Ten Tails. So in this particular situation, Code starts to split the Ten Tails up. I am completely shocked at this particular point. He starts to put his claw mark all over the Ten Tails, spreading it all over, and then he essentially says that he's splitting the Ten Tails up to make it a little bit more manageable. We don't really know specifically what that means. We don't necessarily know exactly what he's going to do with it, but he starts to split the Ten Tails up. Not only did he split the Ten Tails chakra up, but he also mixed in his chakra and iron from his own blood, and then we start to see the humanoid figures also start to take shape. This is what these things look like. Now, again, I'm not completely sure what he's going to do with things like this. They cannot be at the same power level as the White Zetsu Male, because the foes now are going to be significantly stronger. And not only that, Code actually said that he mixed in some of his power as well, plus the Ten Tails power. So of course they're supposed to be significantly stronger than the White Zetsu. But a couple of questions that we haven't necessarily gotten answered about this specific thing was, how many is Code actually going to create, and also obviously how strong they are. Now, not only that, in this particular chapter, we did see some sort of ability from these creatures. One of the actual ten-tailed monsters jumped into another ten-tailed monster, and they essentially replicated the claw mark ability from Code. What happens is, one of the ten-tailed creatures jumps into another ten-tailed creature, and that same ten-tailed creature actually came through another claw mark that was actually right by Code. So it just shows you now the abilities that these things have. So now, for example, you could probably have an army of these guys jumping into one of the creatures, and then the army would just flat out appear through one of the claw marks in the Hidden Leaf Village. It'd be that insane. But regardless, that is what we have. That is the information about these things. I want to give my full thoughts and opinions about these creatures in my actual review. That's probably going to come out when the full chapter does come out, when we get the full context behind everything. But as of right now, this is what we have. But let me know what you guys think about this chapter in the comment section down below. Again, I liked it. I'm pretty sure you guys are probably going to like it as well. But it's me, your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.